We have one final game left in the college football season. That is the CFP National Championship game, pitting number 8 seed Ohio State against number 7 seed Notre Dame Fighting Irish. These are the top two rated power teams heading into the very final game of the season. Let's go over some of the seasons for each of these teams. First, let's start out with the Ohio State. They started off 6-0 or 5-0 before they had that 1-point loss on the road to Oregon in the middle of the season, and they went on to beat their next 5 opponents. They beat Purdue and Northwestern and Indiana pretty good before that. Amazing, just out of nowhere upset against Michigan last week of the season. And that pit gave them the 2 Tier 1 losses for the season. I mean, Oregon finished they as one of the 2 better losses of the season because Oregon finished 13-0, the best resume regular season wise. And the way Michigan finished their last 5 games, this was actually not that bad of a loss, in hindsight. But Ohio State took that last game, to personal, and they absolutely obliterated all 3 of their opponents. Tennessee, that game was over in the first quarter. I think it was 21-0 in the first 10 minutes. Obviously, against Oregon, the Rose Bowl, they got up 34-0 before Oregon finally scored before half. Jeremiah Smith had one of the greatest halves of any bowl game you will ever see. And then, obviously, in the last game against Texas, it could have been tied. Ohio State made that a 14-point swing, make it up by 14. Jack Sawyer had the strip sack and the fumble 6 to put him up by 2 scores and basically ice the game away with about 4 minutes left. Either way, Ohio State, they had the number 1 record strength given their strength of schedule and the opponents they played for the whole season. So very deserving to be here. Very tough road to get there, and they're definitely one of the top 2 teams. Meanwhile, Notre Dame had a similar kind of road. They opened up the season with a good Tier 1 win on the road against Texas A&M, won by 10 points. Everybody's thinking this is going to be, Notre Dame's going to move in the top 10. And then week 2 hit, and then Northern Illinois lost. Still the biggest upset of the 2024 college football season. They lost by 2, 16-14, to the Northern Illinois Huskies, who finished, I think, 6th in the MAC. They finished with barely 7 wins. Notre Dame looked like this was going to be another season where how are they even going to make the playoff? Even with this loss, finish 11-1, whatever it may be, that was going to hold them down, hold them back. They took it personal, just like Ohio State did after that Michigan loss, and just absolutely crushed everybody. The only game that was within 1 possession was the Louisville game at the end of September. Every other game was at least 14 points or more, and they won their last 12 games to get here to the College Football National Championship. They had actually 6. They went undefeated in 6 games against Tier 1. They beat Texas A&M. They beat Louisville. They beat Southern Cal on the road. It was considered a Tier 1 game. Then they beat Indiana, Georgia, and obviously Penn State in the CFP playoffs to advance to the national championship game. And again, just like Ohio State, they are the 3rd best record strength of the team given their opponents they play. Well deserving to be here. They're one of the 2 best teams in all the college football. Briefly, we'll look at the team stats. Not too much to say. Their offense is Ohio State's offense is 30th. Notre Dame's 52. While their passing and rushing offense is not too much to stand up, but the defense in this game is going to be absolutely crazy. The Ohio State is number 1 defense. Notre Dame has the number 2 defense. So this could be a very low-scoring, grinded out, kind of a 21-14, 21-10 kind of game in the end. Time of possession, whatever it may be. I'll get to that in a second for each team's keys to victory, but that's a kind of a brief overview of the team stats. How was the betting markets going? Right now, 91% of the public, 91% of the total money bet on this game have been for Ohio State to win straight up in the money line. 91%. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, they're minus 350 in the money line, but still, 9 of every 10 people, that's kind of crazy. On the flip side, though, on the spread, 60% of the money is on Notre Dame to cover the 8.5 points. So the public is seeing them as Ohio State's definitely going to win the game, but they think Notre Dame's going to make it within a touchdown score as the final result. And I guess a deep dive into some of these spread statistics. Notre Dame is the number 1 spread team in the entire country for 2024. They finished 12-2 against the spread for this season. Ohio State finished 9-6. Against ranked opponents, Notre Dame was 9-1 in their last 12 games, while Ohio State finished 6-3 in the last 10. So that's a big advantage for Notre Dame. And finally, the 5 neutral site games they played this year, they went 5-0 and they outscored the spread by almost 13 points. So that's a big advantage for Notre Dame. But the biggest stat here in the bottom for both teams, Ohio State is 4-1 against the spread in the last 6 games against Notre Dame. Ohio State straight up, they've played since 1995 6 times. So I mean that's kind of irrelevant. But the last 6 times they played in the spread, they are 4-1. Meanwhile, Notre Dame this season has covered in 10 consecutive games leading up to this one, including all 6 of their Tier 1 games, or all 5 of their Tier 1 games after that, and including the 3 playoff games as well. So that'll be interesting to see if Ohio State can cover, 8.5 points, make it a blowout, or if we finally get a close game in the national championship. Looking at some deep dives in some of these stats, I guess I'll go over some advantages for each team real quick. Ohio State advantages first comes in the red zone, and more specifically scoring touchdowns or allowing touchdowns in the red zone. They are top 3 in both offensive and defensive red zone touchdowns scored and allowed, while Notre Dame's kind of outside the top 15 in both of those categories, so that's a big advantage for the Buckeyes. And also the pass rush as well as the passing yards per attempt. Ohio State is really good, obviously, in every defensive category, especially in passing the ball. They do not allow many yards per attempt, and they definitely, along with not allowing, they definitely get to the quarterback and don't allow many sacks. Well, that might be one of Notre Dame's weaker points of their entire team. So that is a big advantage for the Buckeyes. On the other side, advantages for Notre Dame. It's going to come down to basically forcing interceptions and forcing turnovers. They obviously and they were top 5 in rushing yards per attempt. Ohio State's number 2 in yards allowed per attempt, but Notre Dame's biggest strength is their ground game and forcing turnovers, something Ohio State has not been able to force, and they've allowed one, specifically Will Howard in his passing attempts. So, how is each team going to win this game? I'm going to give you the keys to victory for both teams. Starting off with the Buckeyes. The number 1 key to their victory is spread the field. Do exactly what you did against Tennessee and against Oregon, and just basically give all of your athletes, all of your fast sideline to sideline open field threat athletes a chance to shine. When they allowed Jeremiah Smith to get downfield, the dude absolutely wrecked Oregon. When they gave Trayvon Henderson the ball in any long situation, he has delivered. He has at least a 50-yard touchdown in all 3 playoff games. As we saw against Oregon, he had 65 yards, and against Texas, the last game, the last play before half, 75-yard screen pass to the house. So they have athletes galore. And that's not even including Quinshon Judkins, who has been a monster scoring the ball, and not to mention Cardinal Tate and Emeka Egbuka. Both can play on Sundays at this point, and they're the number 2 and number 3 wide receivers in this offense. So spread the ball out, spread the field, get it to your athletes, and let them shine with the ball in their hands. Secondly, you have to limit Notre Dame's rushing attack. You have to make them force to pass the ball. They want to run it 2, 3 times, 4 times out of 4 times in each possession. They want to get the ball. They want to establish the ground game. They want to establish time of possession. Their weakest point is when Riley Leonard has to pass the ball more than 20 times, or 25 times. If they can do that, they have a good chance at winning. And they have to limit Notre Dame rushing the ball. They cannot let them get more than 3.5, 4 yards of carry, because that can turn into long drives and basically keep them on the field while Ohio State's potent offense stays off the field. And finally, be effective on the pass rush on Leonard. Like I said, their weakest part is their passing attack, and one of Ohio State's biggest strengths is their pass rush. If you can get JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer to get that pass rush going, or in the interior guys to get that pass rush, they're going to have success, and they're going to limit Notre Dame's chances, especially getting first downs, and limit their time of possession. Notre Dame they have to win time of possession if they're going to win this game. If Ohio State's even within a couple minutes of that, they're likely going to win this because of how explosive their offense is and how efficient they could be passing the ball or running the ball. So get to the passer, spread the field out, and limit Notre Dame from running the ball. Now, how does Notre Dame not only going to cover the spread but come away with the upset victory? The 3 biggest keys to them is get established field position. Like I just said about for Ohio State limiting Notre Dame's field position, Notre Dame has to establish positive field position. They have to win the field position game. They have to start out closer to the goal line than Ohio State does on average. There's statistics where it shows this. They're one of the best in terms of field position per possession. They have to win this. They have to get positive field position. Even if they don't score, they have to flip the field, and they got to keep Ohio State away from the end zone, and they got to keep them from those big plays, because I feel like Notre Dame has a good enough defense they can limit those explosive, 40, 50-plus yard plays, but they have to keep possession of the ball and limit those as much as possible. Got to win the time of possession for at least 4 or 5 minutes, if not more, against this Ohio State team and keep them off the field. Secondly, they have to run more than pass. Again, just like I said with Ohio State, they want to force them to pass more than run. Notre Dame wants to run the ball, and like I showed you earlier, they're number 4 in rushing yards per attempt. They average almost 6 yards a carry. If they can get that going, even get to 4.5 yards a carry, that's a first down every 3 runs, and that'll be what they need to do to run the ball and keep the time of possession. And if they keep time of possession, they get more chances to score. And if they keep time of possession and more chance to score, that gives Ohio State less chance to score and less chance to get on the field with their explosive weapons. And finally, force Will Howard to win you the game. The number one thing I said about Ohio State, you got to get it to your athletes. You got to get it to Junkins, Henderson, Smith, Egbuka, Tate, whoever it may be on offense. They have the most explosive athletes on the field this year. They're the most talented and deep roster in college football. The one thing that's lacking for them has been Will Howard and his ability to effectively manage a game. I mean, yes, you can look at some of his stats, raw stats, whatever it may be. You can be like, oh, he's above average. The last game, he had about 290 yards passing. You take away on 33 attempts. You take away Trayvon Henderson's 75-yard pass. He had basically 210 yards on 32 attempts, which is 6.6 yards per attempt. If we do that for a team, if we're going to rank that, he would be outside the top 100 in terms of his rank for yards per attempt average. Will Howard is the weakest part of the entire offense. If I want, not including their offensive line, which they're still really good, but obviously they have a backup center. If you have to do the skill position, though, Will Howard's the weakest part of their offense. And like we saw against Michigan, if he has to try to win them the game through the air, like some of these short routes, they don't spread the field, it's going to be tough for him because he's not good with, throwing slants, not good with actually pinpointing the accuracy. If the guy's not wide open or doesn't have him beat by a couple yards, it's going to be very difficult for Will Howard to win them the game. So, establish positive field position. They have to run the ball and force Will Howard to go out and win them this game. And if he does beat you, so be it. These are their 3 biggest keys for them. If he beats you, then they just have the best team and they deserve to win it. But if you can try to get these 3, Notre Dame has a good chance of pulling the upset and becoming a CFP national champion for 2024.